something, you know, that we do can affect someone on the other side of the world.
One camera may not, of course, give the full picture, but Colchester's delighted to be seen as safe and pleasant. Overall crime figures for the last year to September do indeed show a drop of more than 9%.
They've looked long and hard at Colchester via the internet, and they seem to have settled in very well.
We surfed the internet to see what the Neuhoffs left behind. This site shows New Mexico, but any criminals here were shielded by the night. However, look at the homepage of the Albuquerque Police Department and you realise the Neuhoffs have a point. There's a cheerful questionnaire asking you to rate your chances of being murdered. Clarence Mitchell, BBC News.
The government has dismissed as speculation reports that it wants to cut benefits for millions of disabled people. It says all social security spending is being reviewed. Disability charities claim as much as £6 billion could be cut from schemes like incapacity benefit paid to people who are physically or mentally unable to work. It costs over £7.5 billion a year. The disabled living allowance paid to help people manage in their own homes costs nearly £5 billion a year. Campaigners say the government is keeping them in the dark.
We're worried because we're hearing rumours of capping and cuts of benefits to disabled people, and what we're trying to do is to press the government to consult openly and formally with a full range of disabled organisations, which they have not done so far.
Our social affairs correspondent John Andrew is in our Westminster studio. John, speculation says the government, but in your view, true or false?
Well, the government have confirmed that they are looking at disability benefits as part of their overall review of social security spending. And there's no doubt that those benefits have been going up quite dramatically, up 200% in real terms since 1979, and accounting for something like a quarter of all social security spending. You may remember that the last government, the Conservative government, cracked down on invalidity benefit. The view was that lots of claims were not genuine. They brought in a tough new medical test called the all-work test, but it hasn't produced the savings people thought it would.
Which cuts or possible cuts would particularly worry groups representing disabled people?
Well, the one I'm particularly worried about is the disability living allowance, which was brought in only 5 years ago. And the rumour there is that that will be taken from individuals, given to local authorities as part of their community care budget, and it will be, as such, rationed. They're very upset by that. The other one is the incapacity benefit, which was the old invalidity benefit. Now, the rumour there is that that might only be given to claimants for the first 13 weeks. Then it would be removed and they'd fall back onto other benefits like income support. And the cuts there in individual incomes could be quite high.
John, briefly, do you think this may provoke more trouble on the Labour backbenches?
I think it well may do. There are already 50 Labour MPs who signed a motion opposing the cuts in lone parent benefits. This is hardly likely to help. I think it shows that when any government decides to cut benefits, it's going to cause pain potentially to those who receive the benefits, but also political damage as well.
John, thanks very much indeed. The Prime Minister has urged European leaders not to shackle employers with too many regulations in their attempt to create new jobs across Europe. He was speaking at the first ever European summit convened specifically to tackle the problem of Europe's 18 million unemployed.
Of all the unemployment black spots in a Europe where 18 million people are without work, the wasteland of Jemappes in southern Belgium is one of the worst. Here, the housing estates suffer an unemployment rate of 84%, and there's little prospect of improvement. In the wreckage of an old steel plant, local official Gilles Machier wondered if this summit could really help.
All the summits produce nothing, and we hope that this summit will be the first one.
There have been countless declarations in the past about the need to reduce the length of Europe's dole queues, but they've made little difference. The unemployment rate here is twice as high as America's, but now there's mounting pressure for change.
Each year, 2 million extra European citizens are put into the long-term unemployed statistics. We've got to stop that. And that's not just me saying it.
Whatever the summit eventually agrees on, the event itself is something of a job creation scheme. But most of the leaders here are turning away from the idea of pumping in vast amounts of public money to keep uncompetitive industries going.
The way to create jobs and security for the future is not to load a whole lot of costs on business or old-fashioned regulation. It is to invest in people, in their skills, in small businesses, and to set a stable, long-term framework for business and industry to plan for the future.
To avoid the obvious accusation that this is simply another talking shop, Europe's leaders have before them a plan for clear targets for getting the young unemployed and long-term unemployed into jobs or training schemes within a definite period. There'll be no penalties if they fail in this, but this would represent more than yet another declaration. David Schuckman, BBC News in Luxembourg.
First troops to be withdrawn from Northern Ireland since
from the region's coast, only to find there's another unknown problem.
We're very disappointed. We've done all the work here in the northwest coast really to build the plants, build the tunnels, the 2.85 metre diameter tunnel which we're almost stood on top of here at Blackpool. We've done all the work to bring all those plants into operation to meet these bathing water standards, and we still haven't met the standards, so we're very disappointed.
The pressure is now on the government's Environment Agency to find out the cause of the continuing pollution. They've been floating painted cucumbers in the Irish Sea to map its complex currents.
Possibly progress is never quite rapid enough, but we've already reached a conclusion, or more or less a conclusion, on the major one of the surveys in relation to the bacteriological inputs. We'll have the results in collated probably before Christmas, and we're looking in the early part of the new year to have a major technical seminar in relation to those problems and find the way forward.
Meanwhile, the resort's tourist industry is growing impatient for a final solution. Jim Hancock, BBC News, Blackpool.
The Duchess of York has spoken of her unhappiness at not being invited to most of the celebrations to mark the Queen and Prince Philip's golden wedding anniversary. In an interview on American television, she said that at the last moment she was invited to the Westminster Abbey service only.
I then found out on Monday that there was an awful lot of other engagements, like a ball tonight and a lunch and a breakfast and a tea and a drinks and goodness knows what, which I hadn't been invited to. And I didn't think it was right. I thought that they should have invited me to those things. Why was I fine to go to the service but not to go and have private dinners?